Arkham Audio presents Arkham Investigator William Yorick, narrated by Tim Paul Fiscus. All copyrights belong to Fantasy Flight Games. If you enjoy this production, you can find this story and many more in the Investigators of Arkham hardcover book. William Yorick, the Gravedigger. It was a colossal and nameless blasphemy with glaring red eyes, and it held in bony claws a thing that had been a man, gnawing at the head as a child nibbles at a stick of candy. Its position was a kind of crouch, and as one looked, one felt that at any moment it might drop its present prey and seek a juicier morsel. H.P. Lovecraft, Pickman's Model. With a name such as mine, comparisons to the bard are nigh inescapable. Innumerable are the people I yet barely know, who accompany their outstretched hand with, "Alas, poor Yorick," not remembering the lines as they truly are. They remember naught but the skull and Hamlet dancing about as a loon. Hamlet is fine enough. I once played Laertes with the company on Independence Square. The air and the atmosphere were as lovely as ever, yet the play itself ran long, and most can only stand so much when it comes to soliloquies. As for my part, mine heart always bled for Julius Caesar. Et tu, Brute? But consider, dear friends, did Brutus ever have a choice in the whole matter? Was it duty that forced him to kill his best friend? Or love, mayhap? Was he motivated by the sight of the inner monster feeding on his friend's ambitious nature? Or was it his loyalty to the good of Rome that finally moved him? Mayhap it was simply the situation Brutus was forced into. Once the snowball of regicide began its long descent, he had not the strength to stop it. I know a thing or two about situations changing in ways one had never expected. I always dreamed of the actor's life, but now I find myself hurtling in another direction. The gravediggers are oft the clowns, and now I find myself cast in the role to make ends meet. The quietude of night, the tranquillity of the churchyard, provides a perfect stage for the recitation of new lines. At first I wondered, how many graves must one dig in a town like Arkham? But as I was confronted with the truth, I accepted my lot, the same as anyone who comes to stay in the boneyard. For those who visit only, reason provides meager comfort or explanation. Those in mourning do what they must to make sense of the tragedy that has befallen them. At all hours, those bereaved flit in and out of the mausoleum that lies at the hub of this wheel of life. They drop flowers at graves, or light candles in the sacristy. Screaming, crying, wailing. None of the sounds of grief are strange upon this stage. When true love is lost, they will bridge the distance of their grief however they can. They refuse to let the curtain fall, instead sleeping wrapped around headstones or curled up on mausoleum biers. To die, to sleep, perchance to dream, aye, there's the rub. For in this sleep of death what dreams may come. I mind not the mourners. I play my part, and they play theirs. On occasion our paths cross, and our dialogue contemplates the nature of this mortal coil, and the heartache of our short lives. The scene ends with a hug for some tear-stained widow, or by clapping a hand on the back of a bereaved father. Such is not a gravedigger's official course, but the due of human nature. But not all sleep stilly beneath the endless stars. One day, morning broke upon overturned gravestones and broken open seals on the mausoleum drawers. I am no stonemason, and Herman Collins, the undertaker, had spent a fortnight in the hospital, so Father Iwanicki was my only measure of solace. "My son," said he, "it is probably just some scavengers. I shall call the stone carver to repair the headstones. "There are some dog traps in the utility shed. Set out some of them across the grounds. You might want to keep your work to daylight hours, and if you catch someone destroying graves for some reason, don't confront them." It was good advice, but following good advice has never been my forte. And the midnight shift was my only recourse in light of my doing the matinee performances of A Midsummer Night's Dream. The very next evening, beneath Lady Nix's umber shroud, mine eyes beheld the creature. It was no human. Perchance it had a human's form. Perchance it was one once. My thoughts turned to the lichen curse, so popular in tales of folklore. Starry lupus had clearly lent his touch. Its teeth were almost fangs, its clawed hands caked in freshly dug, moist earth. It was bent over the open grave of Marjorie Stewart, a grave I had dug 2 days earlier. I snuck up slyly, no gun in hand, merely my spade and whatever blessing Nix would grant me. With a closer look, I could discern its purpose. It was eating. It was eating Marjorie. I know it heard me gasp. I kept from screaming, but it yet heard me, for its ears perked up, and it started looking to and fro. I froze, hidden behind one of the bigger headstones. But Luna damned me. My shadow stretched long and black along the ground. Then it did grunt. "You go now. Go away." And it started dragging Marjorie Stewart out of the grave. My hand was forced. I could not refrain from action. I breathed deep, slid both hands down the handle of that spade, and stepped into the traitorous moonlight. "Set her down," I threatened. Its red eyes met mine. Filthy, degenerate, and broken, it smiled. "No, mine now, gotta eat." Its maw was stained red-black, and Marjorie's left leg was a tangled mess of shredded, chewed meat. It started dragging her away. Of what happened next I remember little. I swung the shovel, buried Marjorie once more, the monster's mangled face leering toward me all the while. The stench of rot and rancid meat rolled off it in a miasma, assaulting my senses, as I shoveled fresh earth back over poor Marjorie, returning her to Hades' grasp. My spade I used to sever the thing's arms and legs, and then I buried them within the potter's field. At last I went home and drank till I could not remember its face, till warm soul finally rejoined me. It was not the last time I killed such a creature. I think them ghouls, like those mythological monsters. In packs they wander, sniffing recent graves and fresh mausoleum slabs like hyenas, picking over the bodies of the dead. Hell is empty, and all the devils are here. Ever since that fateful night, I have kept up my work, digging graves and keeping the ghouls at bay. My spade has served me well so far, but I have taken to carrying a knife in my boot after one came close enough to bite. They do not prowl the graveyard every night, however. Most nights go by without my ever coming across a trace of ghouls. Yet after the 2nd or 3rd week of no sightings, a new grave gets dug up, or a mausoleum drawer gets cracked open and bodies go missing. Therefore I have kept my watch over the graveyard. But I believe the ghouls, too, have taken notice. After changing up my usual patrol, I caught sight of more of such creatures. One night I spied 5 or 6 of them hovered over the grave of Edmund Jameson, lips smacking and teeth gnawing away. It was the first time I wished I carried a gun. I did manage to kill 2 with my spade, but the rest got away, dragging what was left of Edmund with them. Edmund's splattered trail was plain to follow, down the hill into the bog near the potter's field. A cave or tunnel led right under the chapel proper, into the crypts. I knew better than to go in there alone. I headed back up, and set to work burying the first 2 before the light of day could reveal the true measure of their horror. One fateful night, a few weeks after tracking the ghouls to that cave, I received a late-night visitor on one of my rounds. Her hair shone red in the moonlight. Her eyes were lit with a fire and purpose. In her accented tongue, She asked for my help in fighting against the ghouls, but I could not conjure up the courage. She skulked off, brandishing her pistol and dynamite, and later that night I heard a tremendous blast. I have not seen her since, and I blame myself for her disappearance. The regret plagues me even now. I know now what part I was meant to play upon this earth, and no more will I deny it. Auditions went up for As You Like It, yet this time I did not put forth my name. A clown I may be, but a gravedigger might be a little more important than an oaf flitting about on the stage. I dream still of leaving blighted Arkham behind, of journeying elsewhere or staking out an apartment in Manhattan and a bit role on Broadway. But now, all the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their entrances and their exits, and one man in his time plays many parts. I am but a poor player, set to strut and fret my hour upon the stage of life, and make sure someone else manages to find a good death.